My name is Kay Kut. I'm the Managing Director for Asian Tigers Mobility based in Asia. And I have the honor today to be moderating the panel on IRR. And for those of you that have read the synopsis, I being identify related to talent management, then the next R in retaining, and the third in refreshing. And in all of those, there's another I that comes up, not only the I that sits in the seat, but also with the investment that we have in the talent management. And while there's a lot on our landscape for destination services or RMCs, in terms of the talent management, we have technology, we've got a lot of other disruptors. And Frances, when she was opening up the Eurosession, referenced a lot of the challenges and the stressors that we may have. So today, with the panel that we have, and I'd like each of you to introduce yourself, and to start with Isabelle, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isabelle Prémont. I'm the Managing Director and owner of Map Relocation. We are a DSP based in Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. I've joined the global mobility business about 8 years ago, and 5 years ago, together with my husband, we decided to buy our first company, and then we bought the second and the third. So hopefully I will be able to share with you some tips and tricks on how we could retain and identify the talent who is today working with us.
Raman.
Hi guys, I'm from a beautiful land not far beyond called India. I run a company called Formula Group, which I incorporated in 2004 with assistance from a Japanese fund to support Japanese companies coming to India predominantly, of course, there being a big cultural gap. And yes, today, after 15 years, we're a pan-India based company. We work across service verticals, starting from DSP, immigration, fleet management, corporate housing, and so on. We engage 200 people, not 2,000, 200 people internally. And I think it's a lovely journey. There's a lovely industry, and I think the journey has just begun. So yes, there's a lot to learn.
Rob.
Great. I'm Rob Burns. I'm the owner and CEO of IOR Global Services. IOR is a US-based provider of destination services, cultural and language training, and we have about 37 employees. Hopefully no one's quit this week since I've been at Euro. But we've had steady growth the last several years and about doubled the size of our company over that time. And as a result, we spend a lot of time with HR and talent-related issues. We're not big enough to have our own human resource department yet. I feel like we're getting close because it's so important to get right. Our quality, our service, our reputation really depend on it. So as Kay mentioned, while technology is clearly changing how things are done in the industry, we feel it's still a business where making personal connections with assignees and with clients really matter. So for us, this is a really important topic.
Yeah, and in our roles, and I found a quote from Brian Tracy, leadership is the ability to get extraordinary achievement from ordinary people. And every one of the individuals that's on our team, and I know I remind our team regularly in Asia, they really are extraordinary human beings up to extraordinary work. And they make a difference in touching so many lives. And many of the companies that we serve, if I look at it, we actually touch every human being on this planet through the organizations that we have the honor of serving. So as we look at the IRR, and the importance of how we identify that talent. I wrote a few notes from our conversations. We've had a number of very lively discussions. We spend a considerable amount of time in identifying that talent pool and drawing in the talent into our organization. And with that, it's especially key in tight markets or where labor markets are very challenging. Now, I know in some of our markets, it's a hard time of identifying, let alone keeping them in the organization, again, through that retain and refreshing. But as we look at the identify piece, and I know, Raman, we talked about investment in that. Do you want to talk to me about all the things that you see in that identification?
I think it's always, when firstly, we're in a people's business, what I call P2P or people-to-people business. And our biggest machinery is people, right? We don't manufacture shirts or pants or whatever, and we don't have those complicated machinery. I think what we have is complicated minds, which is people. And I think that's the best investment we can do is into finding people or identifying people. And you said it very correctly, is, people who have knowledge, people who bring value on board, people who can deliver to whatever we have promised as a service. And I think the first place I invest in and we invest in or to identify people is within the organization first. I guess there is, what I read about always is, companies and HR doing studies on how to identify leadership, how to look for talent within. So I think the first place we invest in is internally within the organization to look for people who have those core values we want to look for, whether it's ownership or whether it's that drive they have to lead something or have those leadership qualities. And I mean, I know from my experience that when I incorporated my business, and I was a one-man show, and I had the fun, but I didn't have anybody. So I looked back into my previous work life, which was corporate travel, and I said, okay, I need to find somebody who can join me. So I looked at somebody who was a young girl. She was 22 years old, for example, internally, but she had the right attitude. She was focused and no nonsense, strict, always particular about timelines, a go-getter. And I said, okay, that's the one I want on board first. So I got her on board. And then I needed somebody else too. Then I found somebody who had the right quality in terms of being a very patient person, was a listener, and something very important, so you're somebody who would listen, somebody who would be attentive and keep his thoughts and then come out with the right solution for the team or whatever the situation was. So I guess, I internally looked at talent for ourselves and identified people focusing on their attitude, and I think which is the biggest key word in identifying talent or investing in talent. And one of them today is my CEO, and one of them is a CEO. And this was a brilliant story. So yes, I think one is investing into talent within your organization to identify it. The other is also external. You also need at times to find talent outside your organization, and you need to go out. There's in India we have a big industrial group called Tata. I think everybody's heard of that. And the owner of Tata Group is a gentleman called Ratan Tata, who just retired. So when somebody asked him the other day that you run businesses across various industries, whether it's steel, whether it's chemicals, whether it's software, we all know TCS, Tata is consultancy, is the largest software company. So how did you manage to run all those? So how do you have knowledge about all those things? And he said very simply, he said, I believe in surrounding myself with people who are more knowledgeable than me. So just because I head the company doesn't mean I have to be the most knowledgeable person. So I make sure that I have the best people. I invest in the best people, identify the best talent externally, bring them on board, and we kickstart an operation based on that. And it was beautifully said, and I think we follow that too. So I know that recently, I like to talk about my own story. We pulled on somebody on board. We realized we needed more knowledge on how to develop better processes, better delivering capabilities in our relocation side of the business. And we pulled on somebody from a huge mobility company to come on board. Was expensive, investment, important, not an expense, investment. Please always differentiate. I always say that in different aspects. And it's paying off very well, because today we're learning, where we've got knowledge on board of so many ways to work, new systems, new processes, which we didn't know about. And I'm happy to admit that we learned that and we acquired that. So I think investing in talent, investing in identifying talent is key, whether it's internal or whether it's external. Yeah. So yeah, that's...
Isabel, did you want to have some comments?
I fully agree with Raman that attitude is everything. We can learn our people to use our system. We can learn them speaking English. We can learn them a lot of things. But attitude, the empathy you show for your transferee, the teamwork we have, the client's mind they have, that's something you cannot learn to someone. So that's very important and key when we hire someone. And aside from what Raman said, once we've identified the people, we need to make sure we onboard them correctly into our organization, which means that we make sure they have a full understanding about what we're doing, that we take care of them the first months or weeks they are in our organization, so they fully understand what we do, how we do it, what is important for the company. So, yeah.
Rob, did you have anything to add in identifying?
Just a couple things. As we think about bringing new talent into the company, A couple things that have been really helpful for us. We think of it as like a talent funnel, where at the top of it, you want the maximum number of qualified candidates, and then as you go through the process, you want to wind up with the person or people that are the best fit for the position and the company. So a couple things that have been really helpful for us is a few years ago, we started doing a referral bonus to employees who would refer people to come into the company. And since we started that, I think over half the hires we've made have been recommendations from our team. And what's really nice about that, it's always a little bit of a gamble hiring someone from the outside, but when they're known to some of your core people and they've worked together, you have a little bit more of a comfort factor with them coming in. So that's been really successful for us. We pay half the fee when the person signs with the company, and then the other half once they've been with the company for a year.
That incentive. And it also reminds me, and it brings to light the company Disney. And I always remember when I first met with them that they have a video recording in their recruiting area. And they want to have people come in and really recognize that they want to be there. So it really speaks to the company culture and the brand identity. So we spend quite a bit of time as we're identifying that talent or having other team members introduce them, that they really understand who we are. We are not Google. We are not another type of organization. Our identity is very important, and they have to buy into that in that identify phase. So we do spend a lot of time in the marketplace with that type of effort. So as we look to retaining, right, we've talked about investment and some of those, the efforts of getting them in. Rob, back to you.
Sure. So our strategy for kind of talent retention and engagement, we call it 4 pillars that we have. So it's flexibility, culture, compensation, and then opportunities for growth. So just kind of ticking through the list. For some reason, our employees value work-life balance. So we have a lot of flexible work policies and allow people to work from home or remotely up to a couple days a week. We have flex time, which means that people can come in early and leave early, or come in later and leave later, to avoid some of the rush hour traffic in Chicago, so that adds a little time to everyone's day. And we have summer hours as well, and this can be a little tricky in the summer given how busy it is, but we have people over a 2-week period can put in the extra time and then take a half day off. So for example, you can work an extra half hour for 8 days and then take a Friday afternoon off so you can enjoy some of the warm weather we have in Chicago for a couple months a year. Technology is really important for effective work remote policies. So we have, everyone has laptops, secure access to all our systems and drives, 24/7 tech support, because you need people to be working really effectively. And finally is trust. You really have to trust that people are working. We have KPIs that measure all sorts of performance categories for people, but ultimately we want to provide them with resources and then stay out of their way and let them do their jobs. So that's really key as well. With culture, so IOR's motto is advancing employee effectiveness across cultures. So we tend to attract people who have a real passion for global business, for cultures, as well as people who really like to help others, like to help people find housing and schooling and learn a language and adapt to a new culture. And we really feel like there's great engagement when the employees think there's a real purpose to what they're doing. And just generally in the relocation industry, it's really a purpose-driven business, helping people get settled and adapt. We also like to have fun. What I learned last night at the hotel bar at 1 in, not quite as much fun as some other DSPs around the world, but still a little bit of fun. So we have a social committee that plans events, at least monthly, but usually up to weekly throughout the year. And a big part of this are what we call the summer stress relievers. And those are things to get people up and away from their desks during the really busy time of year. So, for example, we'll have like ice cream socials, walks in the Botanic Garden. We have a massage therapist who comes in a couple times this summer, with Flip Flop Friday. And these are really, low-cost things you can do to let people know that, they're working hard, you value that, and respect that. Next is compensation and benefits, and it's number 3 on my list. It's probably number 1 on our employees list. But yeah, we just like to make sure that we are, paying fair and competitive. And so last year we started benchmarking something we're going to do every 2 years, benchmarking against other small to mid-sized companies in the Chicago area, just to make sure that the ranges we were paying for all the different levels were market appropriate. And we made some pretty significant adjustments, based on looking at that. So getting back to the investment, we really feel like while it was an expense, it was an investment that helped us keep a lot of the people. And finally, our opportunities for growth. And a lot of DSPs, global DSPs, are smaller companies. And we're 35 to 40 employees, so it can be challenging to find growth opportunities for people. We're not big enough that we can put them in another division or send them on an overseas assignment. So it's really important for us to have, to profitably grow the business. So I mentioned we've about doubled over the last several years, but we've also been able to, in addition to hiring a lot of new people, create a lot of new senior roles at the company and allow for some advancement and development opportunities for people. So that's our approach.
Okay. Do you want to talk about your happy approach?
Yeah, I mean, for me, retaining is an important topic because, I think I'll be a little aggressive on that one. And I'll say that, when you talk about retaining and investing in retaining, I think we need to really first know who do we want to retain in a certain aspect. I'm not being too aggressive, but we're in a competitive environment. We know that, times are changing, the consumer is changing, consumer is getting over-demanding. I mean, earlier I used to think, hear about customer satisfaction scores. Now I see NPS, and new terminologies coming in terms of, rating your services, and the expectations are growing high. You're competing with competitors every day, and so the bottom line being you need to deliver, and you need to have a team who can deliver, and you need to have the best team on board. And there is nothing, you can't compromise on that. So I guess it's very important to invest in retaining, but at the same time, playing the devil's advocate, I think we need to be able to do internally our mid-year or whatever performance appraisals if we can, so we understand which are the people who are really performing. We need to understand who are the people who need to be lifted up, and those who don't see eye to eye or whose minds are not aligned with the vision of your organization or the promise you are making in terms of where you want to be, what kind of service you want to deliver to your customers. So I think that sync with the team is very important, and people who sync, people who are progressive, people who are going with the times, who understand that's the goal of your organization, they definitely have to be retained at any cost. So investment in retaining is very, very critical. Who you want to retain is very important, and I think that's what it is. But I think you're right. So in my concept, there is what I call the happy concept. So H, there needs to be a high purpose. Definitely, your people in your organization need to be connected with your goal. Where is the organization heading? Are you being the number one RMC or DSP or auto manufacturer or whatever that is in the country, and that's where you're headed, and they see that and they want to be a part of that story. Or in terms of India, as we say that we are facilitating investment into the country, and and our pitch to the HR is that focus on we allow your employees to focus on your core business, and you leave the rest to us. So I see that our employees buy into a lot of that, and they feel that we're there for a bigger purpose, and they're touching lives, they're helping people coming into alien cultures and settling down. And I think that helps retaining them, because they see beyond just financials and other things, and they find a meaning to their lives when they come to work. So that's the H of the happy. A, appreciation, and I think I learned that from my daughter, who's a psychologist, and she was telling me the other day, Dad, there's one thing people find missing is being appreciated. And that's the biggest reason for people leaving organizations, thinking of change. And if they don't feel appreciated, they will never stay with you. And I scratched my head. I said, yes, you're right. And how do we appreciate people? But we appreciate people. We always give them a pat on the back. But no, people as a human, you always feel that you're less appreciated, even at home or even at work. So I guess that's something we all need to inbuild, is how to appreciate your teams. So we started a system. I'll give you an example of how we started doing it. We realized that the service is being delivered every day. And we have a system where moment a service is delivered and a file is closed, our technology sends out a feedback form to our clients, and they rate it from 1 to 5. So moment there is a feedback which comes in, which is 5, which means excellent, a bouquet of flowers goes out to that consultant or to that employee saying that thank you very much, you did a great job. And we realized that was working very well, because we were appreciating them in the moment, not after the full financial year is over and say, okay, great job, well done, or you just remember the last 3 months, you say, well, you did these files wrong. But I think at the moment, appreciating them in the moment was very critical, and I think that strategy worked. So what I would say is that when you reflect on your own organizations, think of ideas like this where you're able to create that sense of appreciation on a day-to-day basis or in the moment. I think P is pay well. You touch about it. I think we have to pay people well. No doubt about it. We need to make sure that we know if we're acquiring a talent, we have a talent that they are paid at the or benchmarked at what is the pay structure for that particular industry or category or designation or whatever that is, and that's very, very important. Yes, progress. Nobody wants to work in a nobody wants to be stagnant. Not an organization and not anybody in particular. So I guess that's very important for as an organization for you to be having your growth plans. You need to be sharing that with your teams. They need to know that they're part of a growing organization, one. And at the same time, you need to also show them their growth chart or ladder ahead, and they should be able to see that, yes, in the next 5 years. And I was sitting on a flight with this girl from LinkedIn. She was 25 years old, and she was sitting next to me, and she was chattery. And so I was talking to her, and she told me, in LinkedIn, and she worked for LinkedIn, and they have an option that they can go and work anywhere in any of their offices. That's one opportunity for exposure. And if they think that and they identify you as somebody they want to retain, they put a mentor on you, and then they help you, they ask you a question that where do you want to be in 5 years from now? So I guess progress is very, very key in whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's small or mid-size or SMEs or small, medium enterprises. It's very important to have progress there to show a growth path. And the most important of the happy is the why. Are your people happy with you? How do you know that? And that's $1 million question we always ask, is that, are our people happy? Are they happy working here? How do we know they're working and giving their best every day? So I think that's very, very critical. And I think to do that, I think one of the most important tools to be able to identify and to connect with that and answer that question is to do an internal survey. Whether you do that once a year or twice a year, I don't know. You have to figure that out. But it's very important to send out a confidential survey to your employees, asking them all the relevant questions that are they motivated coming to work every morning? Are they connected with the organizations? Do they have all the tools to do their jobs, what you have entrusted on them? And I think that gives you great feedback of whether your employees are really happy with you or not. So I guess for me, this happy model is key to retention.
Keeps you smiling.
Keeps you smiling.
Raman, there were a lot of similarities. You clearly have better marketing, though, with a happy versus the 4 pillars.
Yeah.
Isabel, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just an anecdote that happened when in our office. 2 or 3 years ago, we implemented the fact that people could work from home 2 days a week. We have a lot of young mothers. They all live very close by, but that was requested by the team. So we said, okay, we put all the IT needed, and we tried that. And after 6 weeks, they all came back and said, one of the core values of the company is teamwork. And with working home 2 days a week, we don't see each other anymore. We don't exchange the same way we used to be. So we don't want that anymore. Easy for me, but so now we still give the option for them if it's really needed, for whatever reason they need to stay home, but it's not implemented like we want it or they want it to be implemented, but that was on their request. So that was very nice to see that they were also thinking about how does it work as an organization. So just on that note.
Also recognizing in Asia, for example, we have so many subcultures within the Asian context that some of our offices may be team motivated and others may be more individualistic. So on the teams where we do really recognize that team focus, many of the companies have set out goals and targets that are communicated throughout the organization in a retention strategy. And if they're hitting those targets, they may range from doing something as a social event together locally. It may mean going on a field trip in a bus. It may mean going on a flight to the next country, or it may mean going further afield into one of the Asian countries. So if I use a couple of examples, one of our oldest companies is 57 years old, and I think over the last 50 years, they've been on a road trip. One of the last road trips was 2 days with, and it's not just the employee, because it's very family context. In order to retain those individuals, it really extends further to the one being that's in the office. And it was the employee plus their spouse could attend. And there was no cost to the individual to do that. And they actually went to Bangkok for 3 days. Now, it meant that we went over a holiday period, but it was something that really, as acknowledgement to their contribution as all of the team members. When we speak with the employees, a number of them reference this sense of family and belonging. And in our Asian cultures, this is so important. It may not fit in North America or in Europe, because very often those personal levels of where you might cross over or not. But it's also very mindful as we look to keep them. Also, Raman, when you were saying of identifying the right talent that you do want to retain. Right. And while we have performance reviews, we also have a scan that's more of an independent conversation with the leadership team. And we actually have what's called the A, B, C, D, and T. And the ABC players, right? You have A performers who are extraordinary. You never have a conversation about a challenge or any of those things. And then you've got B performers, C, and D. And what we recognized when we were starting to scan this, that very often somebody put their hand up and said, I'd like a career opportunity in that development focus. We've moved them into a role, but they're no longer a high performer. They became a B, a C, or a D. We also recognized we had some individuals that didn't have the engagement level that we looked for, and they were put on our T. That was our transition plan. And this was really honest, authentic conversations with employees of recognizing while we really would like to retain them because we've had a significant investment as we identified, brought them on. They may have been with us for a number of years. But if they don't have the same passion level that we look to inspire, they may not be the right person. And this is also where business drivers and business needs change. So as we implemented some technology and some other elements, we recognized that some of the team members really couldn't keep up with that pace. And we made some hard decisions with engaged conversation. Would we be looking to retain them and transform them into another role? Or were they going to look at a transition conversation that may have them exit the organization? And we don't like to do that in Asian Tigers. Asian Tigers has a culture that you are there for your life. And I say to the team, you know, I would be the happiest woman on this planet if every one of our team members that came in, stayed with the passion that they had when we had the first conversation, and that they were in my life for the rest of my life. It would be extraordinary. Think about extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. Right. So as I think about our employees, I actually am quite visual. And if I think, perhaps like a farmer in some ways, I have a pot. That's our organization. We put the soil in the pot. We have the seeds that walk in the door that we plant in that pot. It's our pot. It's our responsibility to keep it nurtured, to keep them fed. You watch these beautiful green leaves come to life. You see flowers that bloom. And there may be individuals that can recreate themselves to keep that bloom there, and you retain them. But how many times have we watched that flower petal by petal by petal that either wilts, the color fades, or it just drops away, and we haven't noticed that this blossom has gone? And we have individuals that may be in the organization sitting in their potted pot, but they're not fully engaged in the richness and the color that they could actually bring to life. And for me, I think this is the worst thing I could do as a leader, is to have employees that are on the team that are not engaged. Their life is far too valuable. So how can we retain them? How can we refresh? So as I lead into that refresh of, okay, what's the water? What's the nutrients? What's the fertilizer? So if I look to you, Isabel, what do you see?
Yeah, so when Kay approached me in Seattle about this panel, enthusiast like I am, oh yes, of course, I want to be part of it. And then I come home and I'm just like, oh my God, those last 5 years have not been a smooth transition in terms of we started with 5. We are today 20 people in the office, 60 people on the road. So we've kind of increased, and has not been easy every day. So try to scratch my head, and I don't think there is one good way. So I'm just sharing with you what I think today, after 5 years, and having incorporated 3 companies together, what I might do again in the future. But I think it is a constant education, a constant thinking who we are, where we want to go, with whom do we want to go, and how we want to go somewhere. But one thing comes up always back is you need to empower your people. has been a difficult one for me. I'm a kind of control freak, so empower my people, leaving them some freedom to make decisions, to take some responsibilities. But I think that has been the best decision. As we were growing, I couldn't be everywhere on the same day, on the same time, so I had to start to trust people doing and taking the right decision. And we've implemented, or we've read a book about lean management. So actually, no matter where you are in the company, what you do and where you are, which level you are allowed to give your feedback and try to build together with us a company and a project. We start to give to people who were willing to, because not everybody wants to go forward. Some people are very happy with what they have, and that's fine. But side projects. So everybody in the company, we give them the option for 1 day in a week to perform a side project. I have people who wants to implement a new IT system, so that's a big project. I have someone who says, I want to do a better follow-up or a field consultant. I want this to be my project. Okay, that's your project. I want to organize a yoga class on every Friday. Okay, that's another project. As long as it is a little bit business related, I'm happy. Some people wants to have once a month a lunch, a company lunch, or a training or whatever. So we free up their time, so they get a bit less work to get the time to be involved in their project. And once a week we meet about the project, we define a budget, we define a process, and sometimes it's short projects, sometimes it's very long project. So that has made that people were very engaged in what we were building, because we're still building the company. We've only been busy for 5 years now. We try to involve them as well when we take a decision. So when we say, okay, we are going to acquire this company, we try to involve them not in the choice of the company, but in the impact that this will have on each employee when we do something like that. And also we've tried to, everybody has his strong point and the things they are expert in, and we try to help them to exchange with the rest of the group. So if someone is very good in lease contracts, so we try to have a lunch and learn and try to push them to share with the team and explain with the rest of the team something they're really, really good at. The other aspect, we really want to try to make them feel being part of a project. So we do share a lot of information. We share the budget, we share the goals, we share where we want to go, what are our challenges, what are the problems. We try to involve them in that sense as well. And finally, I think we need, and we should do it even more, is pay attention to the environment where they're working in. We find out that the people prefer to have a good project and good colleagues and nice lunch than maybe a higher salary. The experience they have within the company is sometimes more important than I mean, we need to pay them well, but it's not the most important, the salary today, when people give feedback. We have done a team building, so we went 2 days away from the office and we spent 2 days with the entire team. So we try to define what also they need in terms of training, personal training. So twice a year we have an evaluation with each team member, and we try to define where they want to go in 1, 2, 3, 5 years, and what do they need for that, in terms of training, in terms of support, in terms of maybe other experience. Maybe they should for 6 months try to have another role in the company to discover the other side. So yeah, that's why we try to.
And you're not psychic. They really need to help lead in their developmental points, right?
Yeah.
Rob, what are your comments?
Yeah, no, those are great, and we definitely found that we all had, all three of our businesses had a lot of similarities in how we approach things, but, on all our calls, I was taking down notes and saying, yeah, we could implement this, and so there are some really good things. With the respect to refresh, learning and development is really a key thing. And again, for smaller companies, you often don't have a really big training budget for your entire team. So while we do industry certifications for people through ERC, through Jura, we also rely on on training our team internally. So we have quarterly, monthly lunch and learns, which really have a couple benefits. So they are a good training for the team. We've had this year, I think, 2 or 3 on technology and data protection, of course, but also on PowerPoint tips and Constant Contact. So they're good learnings for the entire team, but they're also really good development opportunities for the employees that are leading the sessions because, they work with us on the topic, they get buy-in, as you were saying, Isabel. They prepare, put the slides together, and present to a team. So there's really kind of a twofold benefit to it, and again, there's really not a significant cost to doing that. One of the other things we do is, again, very similar. Twice a year we call them strategy sessions, but it's when we get our whole team together for a couple days of business updates, social events. But one of the things that we always get the best feedback on is we have collaboration efforts. And as you all know, you get into the office and you tend to get siloed on what you're doing. So you're doing marketing or you're doing destination services. And so it's a great opportunity for the teams to work kind of cross-functionally. And we'll have them working on real business problems and really do value the ideas that come out of it. And one of the important things we started this year, I think, was reporting back on what we did with the ideas. Because, I think there's a sense that people feel, okay, we had this great session, we had these ideas, and then we don't hear anything for 6 months. So we've provided some feedback on, here were for all the kind of business issues we came up with and ideas, here are the things we started implementing, here's what we're doing with them. And I think that's going to lead to just better kind of ongoing engagement with that, knowing that it doesn't just go into a black box.
Mm-hmm. They want to hear their voice being heard, right? Ramon, did you have any thoughts?
Well, while you were speaking, I was thinking, and I just realized that, refresh in India, in other words, we call that nirvana. Nirvana is something which Lord Buddha achieved when he sat under the tree and he closed his eyes and he saw the white light. And he woke up and he said, I'm new, I'm refreshed. So I think that's refresh in my terminology. And again, we need to achieve that sense, give that sense of nirvana to our employees again in the moment as we do our works every day. So I think there is a lot of ways you can refresh your teams, firstly. And I think celebrating birthdays is very big in our company. So never ever come to my office if it's your birthday, because you will be painted on your face with a cake. So you don't eat the cake is put into your face, literally. It's for that 15 minutes, it's a havoc. And you just forget everything. And I think after that 15 minutes, when I come back to my room, I'm refreshed. I'm brand new. So I think one thing is to keep your employees refreshed. It has to be a way of life. In a way, you need to make sure your teams are refreshed on a regular basis. So that's one. And I think, as you said correctly, refreshing is also about refreshing the knowledge, not just the mind. So you need to make sure that you do have, sessions where you upgrade their skill sets or knowledge or whatever, and it not be just about work. Our financial year finishes in March, like all the other Asia and British, not the Americans. So it's from April to March, and we just finished our financial year. So we had our presence. So as a rule, to refresh our employees. So anybody who comes in, excellent. And in India, what happens is that you don't have a certain one level of employees. You have employees who get a salary of as low as $100, who's a delivery boy, or somebody who gets $5,000. So it doesn't matter what designation. Anybody who comes in, excellent, goes on a trip for 2 nights to maybe Goa or something together where it's a refresher, and there is nothing to do about work. We have a coach which comes in who does not talk about training in terms of work. He talks about maybe life. He talks about how they can live a better life, how they can plan a better life, how they can be a better father or mother or whatever, as a better human for that matter. So I guess, we do this kind of stuff to ensure that there is really true nirvana achieved on a day-to-day basis, or it's on an annual basis, whatever. So that's my take on refresh.
Okay. So in the context of IRR, from your lens as leaders, and in consideration of your company culture, right? Is there one thing, if you had the magic wand, that you could wish that you would have more resources in an area? Rob, I'll start with you.
I think the area we'd like more resources is just from an HR and talent perspective. And again, we're getting to that point where it's, do we need a full-time team focused on this? And just having the additional resources in a lot of different areas. But that's clearly one that we have, we're following very closely, and we'll see this time next year if we have that in place. But that's something that we really are focused on and watching closely.
And that comes back to that word invest
Right.
again. Isabel,
I agree. HR.
Ramon?
I think yes. I think one of the key things is to invest in employee engagement. You need to be engaged with your employees. Whether we outsource or whether we do it, it's good to have an organizational psychologist you invest in who helps you, because he or she has better domain knowledge on that, who helps you to be able to make a consistent and sustained strategy on how to engage your employees throughout the year, and so that you can continue investing properly into all the three I, R, and R on a consistent basis. So I guess that's my take on investment, that you need to invest, you need to see what size of company you are, whether you do it yourself, whether you engage a consultant or somebody who has knowledge on team engagement, what brings in is able to achieve your goals of ensuring that you have employees who are always connected with you, who are as inspired as you are and working and giving in their best and motivated and come to office every day and say, yes, I enjoy what I do. So,
If I had the magic wand, I'd ask for more time.
exactly.
You know, the reality of that connectedness with every individual, they all want to be acknowledged. Every one of them wants to feel of value. Very rarely do you find a person that comes to work that just wants to show up and it's just for the paycheck.
Right.
And especially in the business that we are in, if we don't have people that really want to make a difference, that's where the challenge is in serving our customers. We might have somebody in our accounting team that may not want to talk to another person. They love doing their numbers, they love doing their paperwork. But when it comes to our consultants and our managers and the leaders, it really is about that team. And if I had more time to spend with them to be able to cultivate those skill sets or hone some of the efforts that they want to spend time in, that would be my magic bullet. You know, it could give me lots of money. Yes, that would always help. I'd have even more bang whiz in technology, or I'd be able to give them more incentives financially. But that isn't always what the driver is. People want to have fair remuneration for fair work. And I think that also comes back as the balance you were mentioning in your country. You know, your compensation levels can be so very different. We have the same in Asia. And making sure that every one of those individuals feels that they are engaged and that they're of value, regardless of what that compensation may look like. So if I'm gonna ask you another question. In terms of a golden nugget, if you had that one thing to hold on to, is there a golden nugget that you feel is your company's secret sauce that really makes a difference in the IRR space? I know everybody's going, ooh, this is a tough one now. The secret sauce. What is there? Do you have a secret sauce or anything that you wanted to share?
I'm not sure it's secret, and I'm not sure it's going to work forever, but empower your people, you know, trust them and give them responsibility to be part of a project. Yeah,
Rob?
that would be mine.
I wish we had the secret sauce and we'd have a 100% retention rate. But I think we really try to provide a big picture, a balance of having people feel empowered, as you say, giving them flexibility, giving them support, and letting them know that we value their work. And that's something that I need to continue to take the time to do more of, because it's really important from your immediate manager, from the senior leadership at the company, just to continuously check in and let people know that what they're doing is really valued.
Yeah. Ramon?
I think it's all connected. I truly agree. I think it's all about letting people have their space, letting them think like leaders in whatever space they might be, whether they're just a consultant or they're a manager or they're an account manager. They need to feel responsible, and if you can allow to do that, that's more than getting a higher paycheck, because when they feel that they are really doing something and they're leading something and they're and they're being appreciated for that, and I think it's a sense of self-achievement, which is important. And if they feel that they're achieving something when they come to office, I think that's the best thing, and no amount of money can change that or whatever. So I think that should be the secret sauce. It's it's easier said than done, but I think it's a task which we need to be at it every day. It's not that you've reached your goal or target at any point of time, but it's something which you keep working on. So that's what it is.
It's that empowering context. And when we were on our calls together, and I have to say, I learned so much in this process of the conversations we had. And every time that we'd finish a call, I'd be running back the next day saying, we've got to implement this new strategy. And they were like, where are you getting these ideas from? My new HR team. So it was a really great sharing of a lot of ideas that percolated up. And many of the things are very similar in the DSP realm or what we might be doing with the talent we have. But there were some different nuances. And I know, Rob, your organization has recently won an award in terms of being best employer.
We did, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I wasn't even going to bring that up, Kay, but we
There must be
entered-
some secret sauce. 'Cause that's where, you know.
We, this ties back to the employee surveys as well. We entered a workplace competition and were recognized as one of the best places to work in Illinois, where we're based. And as part of that, they did surveys to all the employees, and that was the real driver for for the rankings and for making the list. And just last Friday, I received a copy of the survey, and just scanning through it, I haven't had time to really dive into everything, but there's some really valuable information, and I feel like there are areas we're doing a good job, and people clearly pointed that out. But there are also a lot of areas for improvement, and so we're going to be really candid in terms of letting people presenting back to our company, here were the results, here's what you said, and here's some areas that you feel we need to work on. So we can't do every single thing that was recommended, but but clearly there's always room for more improvement.
Yeah, and I know when we chatted, some of those comments very often can be, for leadership, can land quite confronting. And recognizing, what you see in the mirror may not always be what you think you see in the mirror.
Right.
And the blind spots that we have. And sometimes we think we're doing the right thing for our employees, for the organization, for our clients, but we don't see it. And until whether you were saying about you engaged the survey, you've had this recent survey, you've had some listening tours of speaking with your employees, you really get a different sense and a different feedback, so that then you can choose to transform. So I'm going to ask you the question. We're talking about refreshing employees. How do you refresh yourself? How do you keep yourself current?
Golf, easy.
Oh, okay, there you go.
No brainer.
So it's the getting away from the work and having that time outside.
I think, yeah, it's very important to refresh yourself, and I think it's very important to have time where you can reflect
Yeah.
internally. And yeah, different things work for different people. And for me, golf works very well because I truly believe it's a game of mind, body, and soul. I'm not selling golf here, but it is. And you kind of spend 4 hours with yourself, except that ball which goes left and right doesn't follow your instructions. That's a different part of the game. But yeah, I think that's one which is there. Yeah, if that's what you're asking me, honestly, that's what it is.
Yeah. Isabel.
I'm not golfing at all, but I think also on a personal, when you come to those conferences, you do refresh your ideas, you talk to people, you listen what are they doing, how they're doing, is it working, is it not working, is it a good idea? So my team is always very afraid to see me coming back from conference because I'm entering the office and I said, well guys, I've heard this and we do this and do this, and so they're tired after 2 minutes. So yeah.
My team doesn't wait for me because I'm already always pinging them and messaging them, do this, have we done this, shall we do this? And they're fed up. Why don't you come back? And we'll talk about it.
And talk you down.
And talk it down.
It's so funny because we do the exact same things. We'll come back and we present to the people, here's everything we learned at the conference and took away from it. I think one of the refreshers for me is just getting away from work, from industry conferences, just vacation. And and we do have, like at our company, we have very generous vacation policies. Maybe not to all European standards, but we are pretty generous with the vacations because we do think, it's a stressful industry, and so we do think it's important to get away and use the vacation time you have and really recharge and come back hopefully energized and tan and ready to go.
My team are pretty much like your team of, okay, fine, there's pigging that you're sending the messages, but I also, I enjoy wallpapering and painting. And when I do that, it's a solo thing. And it actually gives me quiet time. But every time I come back to work, they're like, I wish you'd stop painting because you've come back with all these other strategies because there's been a blank canvas for me to think about things. So I think it's also about keeping engaged with your team members. And in a session earlier today, it was also, sometimes we think that there's a lot of important things that we're doing in the office and for the well-being of the business. And very often our team members have a better focus and visibility. And one of my takeaways was really going back and almost like the Shark Tank of saying, okay, come on, team members, you bring the ideas of how you see the business going. Give us some ideas of what you're seeing from the front line. What are the customers telling you? Having that listening for really in the trenches and not from the strategic view of where we think the business should go. Because if we really look at where our industry is changing, there's so many changes that are happening, whether it's in technology. I have a young mentor, not somebody that I would say is my senior, to help me keep current on what's going on with technology. I'm not a big Twitter user. I'm not a big social media person, but I know it's important, and I know we need to be engaging different things. So I think it's also that mindfulness of how we use our own internal team members. So I can see that there's some people out in the audience, and I want to give them a chance to ask any questions, or if they have a thought of the secret sauce that they have from their organization that they feel has made a difference in that identification of talent or their investment, either in the retention of talent or in refreshing talent. It's your opportunity before we wind up in a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions for the team? I have loads more for them, so don't worry about that. Yes.
In relation to what Rob had mentioned about the lunch and learns, specifically the PowerPoint training that you used as an example.
Mhm.
My question to the panel is there's a dual purpose when you're rolling out or implementing new technology for the company. There's the ultimate aims associated with that. But you're also exposing your employees to this new technology, which helps increase their exposure to greater efficiency, greater effectiveness, an innovation, right? So I was just wondering if there's, in terms of rolling something out that is ultimately going to help the business, but that also has a professional development component to it. Um, you know, what sort of approaches have you considered in terms of championing it and exposing them to it and such? I'm just curious.
Well, as I'm totally not an IT person, I would delegate that to someone in my team who really knows what they're doing. So the project would be brought by a team member within the team, which is much less aggressive than when I'm coming in and saying, guys, I have something new and we're going to do that. And we do work with Lunch and Learn as well. So it's a smooth transition to the new phase, the new product, or whatever we have to do. But it would be brought up by a team member.
One of the things we have is we call it our tech team. So we have representatives from our different businesses that meet once a week with our director of technology and are the point people for what's going on in those businesses. So in destination services, we're having trouble with this issue in technology, or we think this is an upgrade that could be made. So the tech team kind of feeds all those ideas, issues, challenges, whether it's from the IT side or from the development side. They get together, they talk about them, and then each week we prioritize. And so out of that, we've actually made a lot of changes and upgrades to our internal systems just based on the feedback from our employees who are using it day to day. So there's a training aspect to it when we roll out a new platform or when we make a significant enhancement, but really a lot of the ideas are coming kind of ground up on that.
Ramon?
Yeah, I think likewise. I think I think the key thing is feedback from employees, as and when we implement a technology, and we're cautiously watching what the feedback is, and we're always trying to upgrade or change or adapt to the real-time feedback, which is very critical. And I think that's very important to also keep your technology in the right direction. I mean, it shouldn't be way off from what your employees are thinking it was going to be, and there is a resentment. And we spoke about it once, that how employees resent to sometimes to technology, and they're very happy in a comfort zone. And why the hell do I now have to log in and do so many other things? So I think it has to go hand in hand, and you have to kind of take them along. in that objective, right?
And I think also if you keep people engaged in the conversation so they know what, especially with technology or anything that's new and a change, that's really confronting. Some of us are change junkies. You know, I took a survey and I'm quite happy to embrace change. It's like quite exciting and it's almost like jumping over into the Grand Canyon and saying, I'm going to soar. Others are finding that highly confronting. And I remember one of the young ladies that worked for me, and she actually worked for me in 3 different organizations. I didn't continually recruit her. She seemed to follow me. But one of the things when it was actually joining Asian Tigers, and she'd been a consultant in my life, she'd been a manager, and then she was being hired as a strategic leader. And when we were going through some of the presentations and the training materials that we had, she actually started crying. And this was like within the first week of her joining. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, stop. We need to talk about this. And she looked at me and she went, you actually listened to the things that I said were the challenges in the services that we had when I was a consultant with you 15 or 18 years ago. What was the number one complaint from transferees? I have to repeat the information to so many people. I have to file my emails, or I have to do certain things. And if we can take the small nuggets that would make a difference for those individuals and leverage technology to help them, it doesn't become confronting. And then when we're rolling it out as training, they actually become our champions because they actually feel that their voice was heard and that it's being implemented in a scenario. When we've implemented technology that we thought was the right thing, from a leadership perspective, that it was going to save cost, it was going to enhance productivity, and it was going to be the new nirvana that we could go, it didn't. Because it was a force, it was a push, it wasn't engaged. So making sure that we continue with those conversations. So as we wrap up, and I want to thank each of you, but before we do that, do you have one last golden nugget that you would say from your organization? And I'm going to put it, when I say it's a nugget, what's the challenge that you recognize that you need to overcome in that IRR? Because we all have those challenges. And this is our next step into what we're going to do as leaders in talent. So I'm going to start with Isabel. Oh. She didn't know it was coming her way.
So I think coming back to my organization, as we are growing our organization, I think my biggest challenge will be to try to keep the team growing with me while I'm on different areas, different offices, and how can I keep on empowering people, having a flat structure, implementing that lean management while we are in a growing company. I think that would be my challenge.
Ramon.
I think, I won't get into every detail, but I think we're dealing with human minds here. And I think I think maybe 100 years ago, somebody who was sitting on a platform like this was still discussing the same. Mm-hmm. And we're discussing it 100 years now, and we will keep discussing it. I mean, I think 100 years from now, this will be the topic on how to keep employees engaged and motivated. So I think there is no fixed mantra or solution to it, but I think it's something we all need to continue working on, take tips from each other, from sessions like this or from wherever else. Firstly inspire and motivate ourselves so that we can be infectious and flow it down the chain to the people around us and who surround us and below us and above us. And I think that's the only way forward. I think it's a non-stop process, will go on for generations.
Painting a bridge.
Yeah, yeah. Human mind is the most complex thing in the world, so it's just always going to be that. So,
Rob.
I don't know if this is a nugget that we have or that I wish we had, but we do a lot of things to try to project what's business activity going to look like the next 3 months to 12 months. Is our staffing appropriate for that? And we put a lot of work into it and look at a lot of data, and the last couple of years at least, we've always been what we feel is kind of understaffed for a period of time. So people are working harder, and we can't just hire a lot of extra employees and hope the business comes. But we really need to kind of evaluate how good of a job we're doing at predictive business, having the support in the right areas, and just making sure that we're a little more forward thinking on that, and not getting caught being reactive on it.
Yeah. And I can't say enough, it's really the people that make the difference in our destination services. There can be apps and there can be technology, but when you really look at what we do and how we do it, It's those human beings that really make the difference. So I'd like all of you to thank our panel. They spent quite a bit of time preparing, so thank you very much for your time. And thank you for being here.